Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavidvishava Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may the divine being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the divine being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto thee, unto us, and to all your beloved children everywhere. Hari Om Tat Sat, dearly beloved. Make it so. Om Hari Om. Well, namaste, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday evening reading and discussion of the book Realizing God. Realizing God is a collection of Swami Prabhavananda's lectures given from the mid-30s to the early 1970s. Each time the Swami gave a particular talk, and he would give the same talk many times, but with variations. A transcript was prepared, a typed transcript was prepared of each of these talks. And so his very devoted disciple, Nalini, or Edith Tipple, went through and found the very best of each of these talks and combined them as a continuous narrative of that particular talk. Say the Swami was talking about Om. Om. All of the talks on Om would be reviewed, and everything that he had to say about Om that stood out above the rest would be gathered together. So this is how this book came to be. It's truly remarkable, and it is unique. So we're very privileged to have it available to us. And to add to that privilege, we have our wonderful reader, Hyma Naidu, to read it for us. So please, Hyma,
sure.
Tell us where we are in the book and begin.
Okay, thank you, Brother Shankara. Good evening and namaste, everybody. We are on page 179 in the book, that is Realizing God. Ramanuja is our topic today. We finished Sankaracharya. Now we are moving on to Ramanuja. Ramanuja was a great saint philosopher associated with the system known as qualified monism, Vashishta Advaita. His influence in southern India especially is very great. There are people who worship him as an illumined soul, and throughout India, he is regarded as one of the greatest philosophers the country has produced. Ramanuja was born in South India in AD 1017 and lived for 120 years. Wow. His mother was the granddaughter of one of the well-known saints of the age, Yamunacharya. Yamunacharya was a great devotee and illumined soul and the head of a famous temple in South India. He lived to see his great-grandson, Ramanuja, grow up to be a young man. His one desire was to see him become head of the temple. There is an interesting story of how Yamunacharya, on his deathbed, sent for Ramanuja. Unfortunately, He passed away before Ramanuja arrived, but there was something peculiar about that dead body of the great saint. 3 fingers on one hand were closed. When Ramanuja inquired as to why that was so, his disciples told him that his great-grandfather had an unfulfilled desire, which was that Ramanuja write a commentary on the Vedanta aphorisms. Ramanuja was a young boy at that time. He promised that before he died, he would do it. And then at once the fingers opened.
Mm.
Wow. When he came of the age to be sent to school, he went to study under a well-known teacher of the time, a great and learned man, but just a scholar who did not have the realization of God. Ramanuja studied with him for some time, especially the Vedanta aphorisms, but he became dissatisfied. As he pondered over the meaning of these texts, he found a better explanation that the teacher could give. When he talked about his ideas on the Vedanta philosophy to the other disciples, they found his explanation more logical and satisfactory. When the teacher learned of that, he became jealous and made it difficult for Ramanuja to continue as his student. So Ramanuja left the school and went back home. His mother wanted him to be married, and as he was very devoted to her, he did so. But he was not happy in his marriage. His whole heart was drawn to the realization of God. Unfortunately, instead of aiding him in his details and ambitions, his wife created difficulties. So he ran away from home. He became a monk in order to devote himself completely to God and his service. Ramanuja went to the temple of Sri Rangam, where his great-grandfather had been the head at one time. Naturally, he attracted attention, and people would come to him to discuss the Vedanta philosophy. They were pleased with his logical explanations and great intellectual ability, but Ramanuja himself was not satisfied. There was a hunger in his heart to know God. He understood the philosophy intellectually, but it did not give him real satisfaction. In order to realize God, sure, Brother Shankara, please, I will.
Let's just keep this firmly in mind. Our experience will parallel that of Ramanuja's.
Very much, yes.
If we can have a perfect and absolutely letter perfect understanding of the scriptures, their meaning intellectually, their logic, their coherence, occasionally their incoherence, not their irrationality, but just how it doesn't seem possible to us. But nevertheless, it will not give us satisfaction. Only this direct experience of the divine presence will give us that satisfaction. So read those last few lines again.
Sure, I will.
Read on.
Ramanuja went to the temple of Sri Rangam, where his great-grandfather had been the head at one time. Naturally, he attracted attention, and people would come to him to discuss the Vedanta philosophy. They were pleased with his logical explanations and great intellectual ability, but Ramanuja himself was not satisfied. There was a hunger in his heart to know God. He understood the philosophy intellectually, but it did not give him real satisfaction. In order to realize God, he needed a guru. It is said that he went to the temple and prayed that he might find an illumined teacher. The story goes that the head priest of the temple was suddenly inspired, and from his lips came out of a beautiful verse, which gave him the indication of a teacher and also summarized the whole truth of God in a few words. The verse translated simply means this: God said, I am the Supreme. Surrender yourself completely. Mention was made of an enlightened man. His name was Goshtipurna. He was not very well known. Though an illumined soul, he remained hidden. But Ramanuja learned of him and approached him. This great teacher lived a life of simplicity with no outward expression of his greatness. But Ramanuja recognized a great teacher and wanted to be taught by him. The teacher refused, and Ramanuja left disappointed, but he went back again and again. Some authorities say that he went back 6 times. In any case, the teacher was not anxious to accept him as a disciple, but Ramanuja persisted. At long last, he was initiated by Goshtipurna and told that he must not reveal the mantra to anybody. That is the custom in India. The mantra is nothing but the name of God, a sort of prayer or a formula which anybody can learn from a book. But when you receive a mantra from the lips of an illumined soul, it has great effect on the life of the disciple. Through it, the Guru transmits spiritual power to the disciple. The mantra itself is simple, but it is charged with power and becomes living as it comes from the lips of a teacher. Any comments, Brother Shankara? You want me to move on?
Just no, thank you for stopping.
Sure, maybe
This
next.
is exactly what happens.
That's right.
Precisely. She's going to read these words again.
Yes.
This is precisely what happens when you take initiation from a Ramakrishna order Swami. The mantra and its spiritual power comes down from Sri Ramakrishna. And the teacher can add to it, but cannot take away from it.
Yeah.
They can, by their own spiritual illumination, their own awakening, add to it by some small amount additional spiritual power, but they can take nothing away from, no matter how it is delivered or what you think of what they say. So would you read those words again about the nature of the mantra and
Sure.
what happens when it's delivered by?
We'll read the last paragraph of it. Okay, let's see. Teacher refused and Ramanuja left disappointed, but he went back again and again. Some authorities say that he went back 6 times. In any case, the teacher was not anxious to accept him as a disciple, but Ramanuja persisted. At long last, he was initiated by Goshtipurna and told that he must not reveal the mantra to anybody. That is the custom in India. The mantra is nothing but the name of God, a sort of prayer or a formula which anybody can learn from a book. But when you receive a mantra from the lips of an illumined soul, it has great effect on the life of the disciple. Through it, the Guru transmits spiritual power to the disciple. The mantra itself is simple, but it is charged with power and becomes living as it comes from the lips of a teacher. Ramanuja asked his teacher, "Suppose I reveal this mantra, what will happen?" The Guru said, "In that case, whoever hears it from your lips will attain salvation, but for you there will be condemnation." Ramanuja did not say anything. He went back to the temple of Sri Rangam and asked that all the people in the town gather there at a certain time. He said that he had something to give and that whoever would come would find salvation. And so thousands of people gathered at the temple where Ramanuja stood on a pedestal and uttered that sacred mantra in the hearing of them all. Then Goshtipurna approached him angrily and said, "What are you doing? Don't you remember that you will suffer in hell by doing that?" Ramanuja got down from the pedestal, prostrated before his teacher and said, "Yes, I know, but I would gladly suffer if by my suffering so many people would be saved." Then his teacher said, "That's what I expected of you." And he blessed him and said, "From now on, the school of thought to which you belong, the philosophy of qualified monism, will be known as Ramanuja's philosophy." And then, as he had promised his great-grandfather, Ramanuja wrote the commentary on the Vedanta aphorisms. He presented the philosophy in a systematized form, very rational, very logical. He is the accepted authority of qualified non-dualism. Ramanuja also wrote commentaries on the Gita and some other treatises that are studied. Treatises. Okay. And some other treatises that are studied by all students of philosophy in India. Now to come to the philosophy, qualified monism, in simple words means unity and difference. Ramanuja gave this dictum first. Brahman is tattva, the truth. Brahman is the hita, the means and methods. And Brahman is the purushartha, the supreme goal. So his dictum was, Brahman is the truth, Brahman is the way, and Brahman is the goal. Any comments you would like to make, Brother Shankara?
Just notice how closely this resembles what Christ said.
Yes.
It's always the same.
Yes.
Once they have realized this and are fully in command of it, they are that. It's not as if they're teaching that. They are that. They do teach it, of course, but it's much stronger that your candle gets lit from their candle, rather than you learning these things and having to turn that learning from external learning to internal realization. They can give you that gift and will and do. So read those last few lines again.
Sure.
About the promise.
Okay. As he had promised his grandfather, Ramanuja wrote the commentary on the Vedanta aphorisms. He presented the philosophy in a systematized form, very rational, very logical. He is the accepted authority of qualified non-dualism. Ramanuja also wrote commentaries on the Gita and some other treatises right, Brother Shankara? It's treatises
Treatises, yes. Mhm.
that are studied by all students of philosophy in India. Now, to come to the philosophy, qualified monism in simple words means unity in difference. Ramanuja gave this dictum first. That is, Brahman is Tattva, the truth. Brahman is the Hita, the means and methods. And Brahman is the Purushartha, the supreme goal. So his dictum was, Brahman is the truth, Brahman is the way, and Brahman is the goal. In explaining that Brahman is the truth, Ramanuja said that Brahman is defined in the Upanishads as Satyam, infinite truth, infinite being, infinite consciousness, and infinite bliss. He only differed from Shankara in this particular respect. Shankaracharya explained those as identical with Brahman, not as attributes or qualities. Knowledge, for instance, is not knowledge that is relative, but knowledge itself, identical with Brahman. It is not that Brahman knows, but that Brahman is knowledge itself. Whereas Ramanuja said, Brahman knows, that is its attribute, its quality. In positive terms, he explained that Brahman knows, exists, and is full of bliss or love. And Brahman is the basis of all existence. That is, he is the first cause of this universe, and as cause, he is the material cause as well as the efficient cause. Here we find a different explanation from Christian theology, which says that God created the universe out of nothing. Ramanuja says that the material is also God himself, that it is he who has become transformed into the universe. This philosophy of creation is known as transformation. We also find passages in the Upanishads which give that idea. As the spider weaves its thread out of its own womb, as hair grows out of man, so does this universe come out of Brahman. Let me read this one more time.
Mhm.
In positive terms, he explained that Brahman knows, exists, and is full of bliss or love. And Brahman is the basis of all existence. That is, he is the first cause of this universe, and as cause, he is the material cause as well as the efficient cause. Here we find a different explanation from Christian theology, which says that God created the universe out of nothing. Ramanuja says that the material is also God himself, that it is he who has become transformed into the universe. This philosophy of creation is known as transformation. We also find passages in the Upanishads which give that idea. As the spider weaves its thread out of its own womb, as hair grows out of man, so does this universe come out of Brahman.
I have a question right here, Brother Shankara.
Yes, please go
For
right
that.
ahead.
How are you? Back to 182, it says, and Brahman is the Purushartha. So that has the root of Purusha, right?
Mhm.
So what we're defining here on 183 is the essence that Brahman is the Purusha, right?
Brahman is the Purusha. Brahman is the expression of Purusha as Maya, Shakti. Yes, both.
Right. And the self, right? The true
Yes.
self.
That
Awesome. Okay.
there is no other true self other than Brahman.
All right, great. Finally, because the term Purusha I've been really struggling with.
Well,
But,
it's one of those things that in Sanskrit there are a number of different terms for the same concept.
Mhm.
And Swami Prabhavananda was to say, when he was pressed about it, he would say, yes, there are subtle differences. But as far as we're concerned in studying this, he would say, it is a distinction without a difference. You know, there's just think Brahman, Purusha, Godhead, you know, just they use all these terms interchangeably. You won't go wrong because, and then he would chuckle and say, first you go along, pursue your studies, pursue your spiritual disciplines, and you achieve Savikalpa Samadhi. After you've achieved Savikalpa Samadhi, we'll discuss this in more detail. But then he would chuckle again and say, but there won't be much that we'll have to say, because in your achievement of Savikalpa Samadhi, you will have realized these things in a way that it goes far beyond the capacity of the mind. You have reached the understanding of the heart and of the spirit. So this is why we pursue these spiritual disciplines. So we push beyond the mind's ability to grasp these things to where the grasp really can be full and firm, and that is within the heart or the spirit. That the mirror of the heart being wiped clean reflects truly and accurately what it is reflecting. Because this is all a reflection. Everything that we are, everything that we experience is a reflection in the mirror of awareness of the expression, the manifestation of pure consciousness.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, dear. Anything else from anyone while we're paused? Okay, dear, please read on.
Ramanuja does not believe that there is any beginning to the creation, but that it is all beginningless and endless. It merely passes through stages of evolution and involution. God withdraws the universe unto himself, and there is dissolution. Again, he brings forth this universe out of himself, and that is the beginning of a cycle of creation.
And these are called, you'll run across the terms, the night of Brahma and the day of Brahma. This withdrawal into everything being potential, the gunas being in perfect equilibrium. There's nothing there but the information from which to create another universe. This is why the universe is not created out of nothing. The universe is created out of this information that was left in this extremely subtle form. I mean, we talk about the subtle, the tiny particles of quantum physics, quantum mechanics. Those are huge compared to the bits of information as we're understanding it now. As a matter of fact, it was spoken of because it was what Stephen Hawking was studying at the end of his life. It isn't even discussed as a thing. It's discussed as radiation, Hawking radiation, the universe in its potential form, which it exists in that form as well as its manifest form at the same time, all the time. Otherwise, it wouldn't be eternal. This Hawking radiation. So new universe is being created. And of course, we see it as new star clusters and new stars being formed and so on, new galaxies and so on. But that's just the gross manifestation. It comes in the form of plasma, which slowly condenses to hydrogen and so on. It's an amazing process. You can study all that. And the modern astrophysicists with their new Webb telescope and so on are studying it even more closely. So anything else while we're paused? Okay, dears.
Okay. I'll read these few lines one more time. Ramanuja does not believe that there is any beginning to the creation, but that it is all beginningless and endless.
Yes.
It merely passes through stages of evolution and involution. God withdraws the universe unto himself, and there is dissolution. Again, he brings forth this universe out of himself, and that is the beginning of a cycle of creation. He says that in the universe, there are two kinds of objects or things. One is sentient, the individual soul. The other is what we call insentient. So God has become this universe, yet remains distinct from it. In other words, what in Western philosophy is known as the immanence of God and the transcendence of God, God is distinct but not apart from the universe. Ramanuja gives the illustration of a man who has a physical body and a soul. As the soul is related to the body, God is related to the universe. The whole cosmos is like the body of God, and he is the soul of all souls. In that is the unity in difference. I'll read this little paragraph one more time, Brother Shankara. So God has become this universe, yet remains distinct from it. In other words, what in Western philosophy is known as the immanence of God and the transcendence of God, God is distinct but not apart from the universe. Ramanuja gives the illustration of a man who has a physical body and a soul. As the soul is related to the body, God is related to the universe. The whole cosmos is like the body of God, and he is the soul of all souls. In that is the unity in difference.
And that's what I meant by everything is a reflection. We are a reflecting medium for this unified existence. And yet, because our reflecting medium is not altogether clean, it has all of these, the residual of all of our distractions and all of our activities, called samskaras or mental impressions. We don't see it clearly, which is why it's said by Chaitanya and others that spiritual practice wipes the mirror of the heart clean, and then the reflection is perfect and accurate. And we see clearly what we were not able to see clearly before. And it does happen. You keep after your spiritual practice, you'll see that the mirror of the heart becomes clean. This is the way Chaitanya starts his prayer. Chaitanya revolutionized the practice of devotional worship in India. It starts his prayer this way. This is the prayer that Swami Prabhavananda sent down to us. Chant the name of the Lord and his glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean and quenched that mighty forest fire, worldly lust, raging furiously within. Now, unceasingly doesn't mean every minute, it means every day. Preferably more than once a day. But the idea is that if you do that, the two impediments to your awareness, accurate reflection in your awareness of the truth of reality, the mirror of the heart will be wiped clean, and the distractions, which are this raging forest fire of worldly lust, that will be dispelled. So this is his promise. These are the two promises with which he starts his prayer. Pretty powerful stuff. Anything else from anyone? Okay.
With regard to individual souls, he points out that they are the attributes or molds of God, related to God as parts to the whole, never the whole. Just as the wave is not the ocean, still it is not separate from the ocean. There is division, but unity. So individual souls are related to God, like waves are related to the ocean. Then he says that, unfortunately, we have forgotten in our ignorance that we are related to God, are parts of God. We have detached ourselves from that vast ocean and attached ourselves to the part. We attach ourselves to matter, and this is ignorance. If we can really free ourselves from our attachment to matter and attach ourselves to God, there is salvation. But
read this, just that one last line again.
Sure.
You can do what again?
Yes. You want me to read the few lines before this?
No, just that one line.
One line. If we can really free ourselves from our attachment to matter and attach ourselves to God, there is salvation.
Bingo. There it is.
That's right.
Our attachment to matter is completely understandable. We are made of matter. We seem to be part of the material world.
Yes.
But in fact, that's just a little passing phase in our manifestation. This particular one especially. Our lives are rather short these days. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, a human life is of only 2 days' duration, trying to give us some sense of how short it is. So this particular Stardust spacesuit will come and go relatively quickly in even earthly terms, not to mention cosmic terms. So why be attached to it? Why get ourselves attached to it? it's going to go, and we can't hold it from going no matter how hard we try. When it's time to go, it will fall down. We won't be able to keep it going no matter how much medicine we take or how many doctors we visit. They'll ultimately lose that battle. So why, it isn't that we shouldn't go to the doctor or take the medicine. Sri Ramakrishna himself let the doctors come and visit him, and he took their medicines when he had throat cancer. But he wasn't attached to it, the body. His disciples asked him, "Oh, if you wanted to, you could save it." He said, "I gave it to Mother years ago. Well, I'm going to come back and ask her to give it back to me now? No." So this business of self-surrender and non-attachment are so intimately connected. Any comments or questions or concerns?
I think it's because our soul is residing in this vehicle, that space suit. We have to keep that space suit keep going, right, Brother Shankara? We have to keep it like
Well,
when
it's probably better to think of the body residing in the soul, rather
yes,
than the soul residing in the spacesuit,
yeah,
because the body comes and goes, the soul does not.
exactly. Soul doesn't. But why?
So that which the soul, as a reflection of the divine,
Mhm,
chooses to manifest,
mhm.
in this case, this particular Stardust spacesuit,
Yeah.
it's within the soul, and when its purpose and its time is finished, it will go out like a candle going out.
Mhm.
Come to the end of its burning, a candle goes out. You can't keep that candle going, no matter what you try to do. You can shield it from the wind. You can try to add a little more wax to it. It won't work. It'll just burn out.
Yes.
So
Sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Marina.
This discussion kind of reminds me, I think I read it in the Gnostic gospel about Jesus, why they said to him that why did you could have transcended yourself? Why did you go the whole 9 yards and get put on the cross and all that when you could have had the power to keep yourself from all that suffering? And he said, well, I did it for the people. So this is kind of that kind of thinking, isn't it? That he went through that
Yes.
physical
Yes.
pain and everything to illustrate to people that he was not the body.
Yeah, well, exactly. You remember when his companion cut off the centurion's ear, and Christ put it back and said, no, this isn't our way this time. If I wished I could have called down legions of angels to fight for me and save me and take me away. But no, I'm going to go ahead and be crucified for the people. My sacrifice is not for me. He had nothing to prove, nothing to transcend. He had already transcended before he began his mission. This is proof in the two temptations that the accuser, the tempter, brings to him about the stone and jumping from the tower and so on. He had already had nothing whatsoever to prove. So these great souls, they give themselves away for us. And if you let your heart reside with them, there's very little in universe that is as inspiring. Perhaps nothing else is as inspiring. And it inspires us to, in our small ways, do the same. Because as Swami Vivekananda pointed out, selflessness is religion. Selfishness, anything done for yourself, is not religion. It's not that you must be religious every moment. It's not possible. You must do things in order to sustain it, create such as a manageable situation for yourself. But Vivekananda says if you can be truly unselfish, even for 5 minutes, he said, you solved the problem. You know how to do it. So it's worth pondering the meaning of his words in terms of our own existences, in terms of how we spend each day. Is there 5 minutes in each day when we can act truly unselfishly in some situation? And the answer, of course, is yes. We just have to identify the situation and then behave appropriately and auspiciously. Anything else from anyone? All right, how are we doing for time?
We have about 13 more minutes, Brother Shankara.
Oh my, wonderful.
Yeah. Here it is once more. If we can really free ourselves from our attachment to matter and attach ourselves to God, there is salvation. But there will always remain the distinction, though no separateness. In ignorance, we have separated ourselves from God. In knowledge, we unite ourselves with God, but never do we become one with Him. We remain as parts to the whole. The ideal, according to Ramanuja, is not oneness, but living in the service of God. As the method, he emphasizes what is known as Bhakti Yoga, the path of love and devotion, that only through love and devotion can we attach ourselves to God and be united as parts to the whole. He points out that devotion and love mean constant remembrance of God. What is known as constant contemplation, to pray ceaselessly. He gives the illustration taken from yoga philosophy of oil poured from one vessel into another. It is continuous, and there must be the same continuity of the flow of our thoughts towards God. He explains remembrance or contemplation as seeing God. Remembering God then means to see Him constantly and to feel that presence. We are just like people asleep. Our friend is next to us, but we do not see him because we are asleep. Just so God is present, is omnipresent. Know it, see it. All we have to do is feel and recognize Him. Then He gives us the truth, which is given by every system of thought, that purity is the most important thing to achieve. And that is because we are really always attached to God. We live, move, and have our being in Him. We are just not conscious of it, but run after things and objects forgetting God. Ramanuja makes a distinction between love, devotion, and self-surrender. He uses the word prapatti, which can be translated as surrendering ourselves completely and wholeheartedly to Him, so that there is no more will of our own left in us. He says that comes through love, devotion, and the practice of moral disciplines. He says that the ripened stage of love is the same as complete surrender. Then we live as complete and total instruments in the hands of God. But that is a stage we have to arrive at. The knowledge of the will of God comes to us at the stage of development when we have completely, through our love and devotion, surrendered ourselves to Him. There is no more ego left in us. Ego is wiped out. Like all devotees, Ramanuja emphasized divine grace, that without it, you cannot surrender yourself, nor can you love and devote yourself to God. Furthermore, he points out that divine grace is not partial, but is present in every one of us. It is only because of our impurities that we do not know of it. The moment we achieve purity, we feel that grace, and we know that it is through His grace that we devote ourselves to Him, and that it is through His grace that He becomes revealed to us. In comparing the philosophies of Ramanuja and Shankara, you find an apparent wide divergence. But if we can understand, it is dissolved. In my opinion, the difference is that Ramanuja had only the lower samadhi, Savikalpa samadhi, whereas Shankara had Nirvikalpa samadhi, the highest. Every philosophy propounded by our great teachers is based on experience. As such, we find that Shankara had the experience of the attributeless Brahman, and having merged himself completely in Him, found himself one with Him. Atman is Brahman. In that experience, the universe is annihilated. There is no world, no matter, no mind, no individual souls. They are all one. Now, in the lower Savikalpa Samadhi that Ramanuja had, there is the distinction between the individual and God. In it, you see yourself a part of the whole, so the universe is not completely annihilated. You see a relation of the universe to Brahman, to God. Ramanuja rationalized that experience in terms of the philosophy that the individual soul, though not separate from God, is a part of God and distinct from Him. The universe as we see it is, of course, not true, because what appears in that lower samadhi appears as a part of God. Naturally, then, in his philosophy, the universe is like the body of God. The cosmos is the body, and He is the soul. And we are related to Him as parts to the whole. To Ramanuja, bhakti is the ideal, not knowledge. because he considers knowledge relative. You see, he did not have the transcendental, absolute knowledge. He did not experience the truth. So he teaches that devotion, which makes us completely forget our little ego and have self surrender. In the beginning, we may look on God as separate from ourselves. Then we are a dualist. Then we see ourselves as part of God, qualified non dualism. I am the vine, A are the branches. Later, when that love becomes very deep, the lover, beloved, and love become united in one, and we realize I and my Father are one. That is the end of Ramanuja chapter, Brother Shankara.
Very
Wonderful, wonderful.
good. How much time do we have left?
We have about 4 minutes. Next is Chaitanya.
I think we'll leave it at that then.
Yeah, I think next week would be Chaitanya. Would be great.
Yeah, we don't want to take up Chaitanya. Chaitanya again. You know, the Swami selected these great teachers with care and
Yes,
wrote about them with great care, because each one of them
very nice.
presents things, so the teacher presents things a little differently. The basic teaching, the basic conclusion is the same. Tattvamasi, that thou art. You are that one Brahman, that Atman. And so now you are in existence as Brahman or Atman with attributes, Saguna Atman. But you are totally and inseparably also Nirguna Brahman or Nirguna Atman. Not the water still or water and waves, same water, Sri Ramakrishna would say. So we'll just leave it at that until next week. And we'll hear, I mean, Chaitanya is really rather sprightly. His story is an interesting one. Anything else from anyone?
Well, I kind of like this Ramanuja.
Oh yeah, qualified non-dualism is a very friendly place to park our minds. Most people are qualified non-dualists, whether they know it or not, and they practice devotion, and karma yoga, a combination of the two. That's how most people live their lives, though they may know none of these terms. And this includes Christians, Sufis, even Muslims. I say even Muslims because they have a rather more rigid way of behaving if they're Orthodox. So anything else from anyone? And I agree with you. Ramanuja is a very friendly place to park ourselves.
Right. Such profound thinking. I mean,
Yes, oh yes. He hasn't been treasured the way he's been since they said he was born in the 11th century. It's a long time to be treasured so thoroughly. And his work studied over and over by generation after generation of spiritual students and monastics. All right. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we go forward knowing that that divine being presented to us in the opening prayer for each of these sessions as Mother Father, that Mother Father holds us securely in a loving and protective embrace. They are our Father and Mother. And so wish only the best for us. So that's who they are. Hari Om Tat Sat. And may you be well and in bright spirits. The next time we'll meet, of course, it will not be until next Tuesday, because, I mean, we'll meet, but not in this setting, this Saturday and Sunday. There's no Saturday class because Swami Yogatmananda will be here. Whether you participate on Zoom or in person, please don't miss Swami Yogatmananda. So then the next Tuesday will be our regular class on the gospel, on Wednesday and so on. And the following Sunday, the talk will be from here, and the title will be "Who Awakens?" When we begin to awaken, our spiritual nature begins to awaken. Who is it that's awakening? So, any final comments, thoughts, or questions from any of you, beloved ones? As always, Hyma, thank you so much for your reading.
Oh, I am so honored, Brother Shankara. I never knew Ramanuja lived 120 years. We studied when we were young in middle school and high school, little bit of Ramanuja, little bit of every saint, Shankaracharya, Chaitanya, but not this elaborate 4 pages. Just
I'd forgotten too.
quick,
I know.
everything. I never knew. I don't remember. Maybe I read when I was little, 70, 60 years ago. So
Well, I read this
120
years ago, but I'd forgotten.
amazing. 120 years.
There's
Yeah.
nothing quite like purity to keep you alive.
Yeah, I know. I know. Wow.
Anything else from anyone?
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, dears. Good night.
Good night.
May
Thank
you,
you. Good night, everyone.
may you sleep well.
Good
Oh,
night, everybody.
Sweet dreams.
I have such trouble finding this little button over here. Good night, everyone.